go live, and we should still be on the holding slate at Eternity's Gate. Oh yeah.
You haven't got a digital clock in, have you?
I can kind of hear her, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll tell you this.
It's very loud. Where's that coming from?
Yeah.
Talk back.
Okay. Right, so we're going to do a dummy run for 17:35, so that's in 2 minutes.
Do you want me to ask the questions? If you give me the paper.
Hang about.
Yeah, that's correct.
Not for you. You're not answering.
Actually,
Are you taking this off if you've got a in the gallery?
I've actually seen this. Oh, I could tell you that.
Oh yeah, fine. Do you want to, Rory? Do you want to ask if they get me the printouts for the questions? I can just pretend to ask the questions.
Yeah.
We need a proper sound man on this job.
Yeah, sure.
You all right, man? I'm doing all right, aren't I?
Yeah, you're doing great. Is that on you? Yeah, that's
15 seconds, everyone.
We got any? Shall we ask the questions or not?
Yeah, go for some questions.
Oh.
7, 6, 5, 4.
Oh, so we are live. Oh, right. So we're gonna ask some questions for this evening.
Again, guys. Yeah, do that again.
I've just got them up.
Is this being recorded or is this actually being switched live to the things?
This will be live.
No, as in this test.
No, the test is only going to the people that have the links. Those on a private YouTube. So it's just the technicians at the cinema.
Do we not need the guys here and here?
No, well, sound will be fine. It's just so we can do it.
Okay, we're going to start at 17:37 this time. Still take everyone up. Can we play?
Yeah, close the door. So Julian Schneinbel is the director.
Julian Schnabel is the director/writer. Yeah, Schnabel. Okay, 1 minute to go, everyone.
Where's this guy from? Is he,
Oh,
Brit-
he's
is he
from
British?
He's from where is he from? I don't know. Don't know where he's from. Yeah. Do you know where William Dafoe's from?
Is he not a football player?
Where he's from? He's
Yeah.
American.
Oh, he's American.
Yeah.
40 seconds to go, everyone. Just checking, so it's 1, 2, 3. So that's one I've got to not get my hand in front.
Yeah, so that's, you can see it up there as well. So I'm not looking at any cameras, are we? Because we're just going to be doing this.
15 seconds, everyone. Can I check what's
Van
10,
Gogh.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Curzon Home Cinemas. We're sat here with Julian Schneinbel, the director of the film. And we're just asking a couple of questions that's been sent in. So I'm just going to jump straight into it.
Yes.
And good evening.
Good evening.
There are already a lot of films out there about Vincent van Gogh. How do you approach making At Eternity's Gate in order to make it fresh and unique take on the artist? Is there anything you feel cinema on Van Gogh hadn't captured up until now?
No, but I thought I was better than everyone else, so I'd make such a legendary artist film.
Good work. Excellent. I thought the film was great, by the way.
Thank you.
And what did you feel was very special about what William Dafoe could bring to the role and of one of the world's most famous artists? Were you looking for a side or kind of flavour of Van Gogh that you felt might not have been explored before, that only Wilhelm could bring? That's Wilhelm there. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but he's got a really nice hat. and
Yeah.
and I have actually seen the film, and it was very good, and he was very good.
What do you think of the ending of the film?
Oh,
Wasn't there a bit controversy around the film about did he kill himself?
oh yeah, there was
Did he
There
kill
was-
himself?
something going on, wasn't there? Yeah, I
Did,
can't.
either did he kill himself in real life or was he murdered?
Oh,
That's
that
what I
was it.
read.
Yeah, I saw it on an aeroplane with 3 other films, so
Uh,
it's all gone into. But yeah, it was very good. Yeah.
well, yeah, we might have a look at a clip of the film.
It's fine.
Fine. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, look, we want to just for the cinemas out there. If you've got any audio problems or video problems, let me know. I'm just reading some emails. Oh, the link has definitely changed. Oh, okay. Bear with me. Yeah, I've just got it now. I'm gonna send that link to them. Bear with me.
Yeah, end scene, everyone. That was a good rehearsal.
Link has just
Wonderful. Thing
changed.
is that I just realised it because it's not like it's not a TX file or anything. So there's no like massive impetus to come off very quickly or anything.
There is a TX light somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah, of course.
What? OTX time. I'm just sending a link. Let me just call. Where's my phone?
I think we should do one more on the
Oh, the new one. Okay. Happy in the gallery. I mean, I'm just waiting now. The cinema's probably. No, I've got no earpiece in, but I can kind of hear you through one of the talkbacks.
You can go through me if you want.
I think we're probably going to need to start again because the link for the cinemas, they.
Like saying we could do another go.
Yeah, are they practicing playing the VTs?
Yeah, they are practicing the BTs. Yeah, we had a couple going when you were talking actually. So yeah.
Oh, okay,
We'll do
fine.
that in our second run. Have another crack at that.
I just want to make sure. I'm just going to wait until Sam gets back to me and tells me the link and he's done. And the site, as you know, here live on Cinemas. Yeah, that's fine. Let me give him a quick call. They should be seeing me now anyway and hearing us at the cinemas.
Do you want me to ask something?
Do you want to do it now?
How long? Should we give it 5 minutes for you to do your?
Yeah, I'm just going to call Sam at Curzon.
Yeah. We'll do it in 5 minutes. Why do we aim for 10 to? Yeah, cool. 10 minutes in then.
The film. Have you seen the film?
I have, yeah.
I've forgotten what is the deal with the ending? I've forgotten now what happened.
The end. Boy
Well, yeah, I remember that bit.
is off. Madness.
Hello, is that Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam?
Okay, yeah.
Yes, Errol.
I'm trying to piece
Yeah,
it
good. Did
together.
you just get my email?
Forgotten.
You can go to the exhibition.
Oh, right, I've just
Where-
seen it now,
I didn't
so
know, where
I'll
is it?
get. What can you see anything at the moment?
Carol is going to be sitting in the middle, I think. She's going to be running that. That's the thing. She's very
Oh, really? So has he got work?
I'm on the phone to you. Yeah,
Bangos
you'll see me
works,
waving. There'll be a delay on it.
Really?
So we're gonna start. We're gonna do another lot of testing. So you've got the YouTube and the Curzon site up.
When did it come out, the film?
But that's fine. As long as you've got the Curzon, as long as the Curzon one is working and you can hear me as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, we're going to run
see.
a little opening test from the slate and then cut into the studio and then cut to the VT and just drop me a message and tell me if that was all fine.
3.
All right, we'll start in a minute or so. Thanks a lot.
3 weeks.
Cheers. Bye. Sam is ready with the cars on site, so we can do another test when you're ready, Bex.
Okay, so we're going to.
Cafe Pacific.
Cool, so we're going to aim for
Flight.
a TX at quarter to, which is in 2 minutes' time from now.
Oh, on flight.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's definitely out then.
Yeah, it's on a flight. Yeah.
Yeah.
How was Abu Dhabi?
Really good.
Was it the Olympics? Were you on the techno?
Yeah, no, there was just 2 technos there, and that's
Ah.
what I hung out with most. But,
Ah, okay.
and no, I was doing. Yeah, there was 20 cameras. Dean was supervising
Who's Rax? Someone good.
Oh, some, yeah. Some dude, I don't know. Yeah, it was like a local OB truck.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, but then it had a couple of people that were flown over from like CTV to like oversee it.
Who were they?
Martin.
What, just to go and tour the job?
Yeah, pretty much. Or just to kind of get flown over and kind of.
Martin
yeah,
who?
Mike, are you starting on the wide?
Martin.
Do we need to get Ian to like turn towards that when he starts? Yeah.
So, actually, how does he?
We're coming to this camera.
So I'm looking. So how does he open? Is he talking to camera or talking to the guests?
I don't think it matters too much because it's on a wide, but I think we'll it depends how experienced he is. Yeah.
What? I didn't hear that.
So Bex is saying we're going to keep it as natural as possible because he's obviously not done loads of like live broadcasts. So I think the idea is he'll be just slightly towards this camera, but it's not like a deal breaker.
Fine. I'll just welcome everyone to the studio from there.
Because I think we're staying on the wide for a bit, right? Yeah. Great. 20 seconds, everyone.
I'll ask you some easy ones.
15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Oh, good evening. Welcome to TOG Studios. We're here with Julian Schneibel, and we're going to jump into the questions about the film. I'm going to ask you some questions that we pre-prepared and we've got the public to ask. What was your earliest memory of watching a film in a cinema, and what was the film?
Oh,
That's a good question.
that is a very good question, which I can't remember, but I do remember the Spice Girls film,
The Spice
which
Girls
is
movie.
still one of my favourite films to this date.
Do you think there was anything in the first experience that led you to becoming a filmmaker?
What, with the Spice Girls?
Yeah, with the Spice Girls. Was the picture so bad that you had to become a vision engineer?
Yeah. No. I think it was when I saw the Power Rangers live at Wembley. That's really where my film inspiration.
The love for your film.
Yeah.
What was your favourite part of the filmmaking process?
Just being able to get creative. It's a very arty film. So yeah, that was it.
Is there a film that people are always surprised to hear that you like, apart from Power Rangers and Spice Girls?
Essex Boys.
Essex Boys?
Yeah, it's a great film. Spice Girls, Essex Boys, and yeah, anything like that.
Oh, okay. Great. And is there a classic film that you haven't seen and you don't mind confessing here today? For example, I haven't seen Casablanca.
Schindler's List.
Schindler's List.
Schindler's List.
Schindler's List.
Schindler's List.
Oh, excellent. So thank you very much. The film was amazing.
Yes.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
And all have a good evening. Good night.
Good night.
And we're clear. Well done, everyone. Great. Well done. Let's see.
Was I too honest?
I think you gave far too much away.
True story though. I saw the Power
Power
Rangers.
Rangers and Spice Girls.
I'll turn all those cans down, so.
They're well loud, yeah.
Yeah, because I can actually hear for that one,
Yeah.
but really it should just be coming from Rory.
Put them out.
Yeah. Ross, sound, are you happy?
Ross is probably falling asleep, but I'll.
It's all right, he'd be on sound
Ross,
as long as he's happy.
Ross, if you can hear me, I'm just testing 3 here. You probably 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right, well that's mic 3, James
Mic
is testing.
3, Ross. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Happy there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Good. These caps, right? So there's like 2 volume controls. It's like this one.
Yeah.
Main volume. And then there's
4. Ross, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully you will be able to hear me here, I'm sure. Guest 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool.
Chloe, are you happy with all that? Yeah, that's all good, mate. I've turned it up. Are you happy with that single of the
have a phone.
You guys going to hang out for the road trip, or are you just going to do that?
No, we always just do our own thing, yeah. So, yeah, depends on, like, weather, travel, literally, like, how
It's not
quick
too far,
we
is it?
finish.
About 12 hours.
Yeah, 12 hours. So we have done it in one day, and the road trip do it in one day, but as in, like, they only do one stopover, but we've started doing 2 stopovers, but now we're kind of thinking, we'll leave Friday morning, try and get as far as Nuremberg, which is like 3 or 4 hours from there, and then
Eight,
Saturday morning we'll like
seven,
travel to
six,
go early and
5.
I would.
wing our
Have you
chances.
got, when's your accommodation booked?
It's not till Sunday, but I'm
You can
sure
find
that we
somewhere.
don't. Well, I asked Snowball and I said, oh, can we change our hotel to like check in a day early? And they said, no, absolutely not. But then my friends who are flying, they got flights on Saturday and they called the hotel directly and said,
Yeah.
we're with Snowball and
Oh,
can
they'll
we
do it.
stay early? And they were like, yeah, sure.
I know people that live there. So
Yeah.
if you do get problems, let me know.
But
Can you
one
hear
of our
me on
friends
my
flies
radio
on
mic?
Saturday, and one of our friends, there's only 2 of us that don't.
Yeah.
So kind of us are thinking,
I've
like,
got.
rather than pay, we might as well crash for one day. We just need somewhere to change, really.
Yeah,
Not
that'll
to
be,
like board it
yeah,
early.
that'll be fine. I thought we were getting an earlier flight because I was hoping we'd just land and just go straight up and come home. But
Yeah.
I don't know if we might get time.
Depends. That's the thing. It's like you probably could, but the lifts shut pretty early, don't they? They start shutting at
Normally 5 o'clock.
Hello, I am Ian Hayden Smith, and welcome to Cousin Life.
Because we're getting a bus from the airport, which is like 3 hours.
yeah. Fuck.
So
The
like
airport will be fine.
we're going to Munich.
Yeah.
If you go to Innsbruck, it's really fucking close.
Is it?
If you go to Munich, it's actually very
If I did one flight a day, fly to Munich.
Should I do what was Ben Bailey Smith? Oh, hi. How you doing, guys? This is pretty cool, right? Here we are. Like, yeah.
Just check this out here as well.
Yeah.
I thought we were getting like a 6
Do you need to, Bex? Do you need me to test any other mics, or are we?
early and then get off Hillsborough. No, we're aiming for about 3 o'clock, I reckon we'll get there,
Yeah.
which is a little bit close.
Will it get in at 3?
Are we?
I reckon so.
Oh, by the time you
So we're just seeing visuals, not sound, right?
Monday.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. We're still going to try.
What hotel are you staying in?
Here's fine.
Eye close. Which is at the bottom of the hill.
Bottom on the corner.
Yeah, the bucket club is on the
Yeah.
corner.
Okay. Yeah. Fucking noisy.
Which is near the venue, so that we can stagger home rather than missing till 6 in the morning for the
Oh.
first night.
Yeah. Nice.
Seriously.
Yeah. How many of you going? Fucking like 5, I suppose. Yeah. Like, get our groups together, get it
Are
on.
you guys doing fancy dress?
I'm really not into fancy dress, but 2 of the people that are into it, in the 5 of us, so 2 are dead into it. They're like, the 2 guys are like, never would have seen dead. And then the couple, like, both of them, they're married, and they're full on like, yeah, let's go fancy dress. We've bought, they've bought
There's
Heath.
fancy dress thing as well.
Yeah, it's 90s. What is that? That's nothing. They should never do themed fancy dress. It should always be a specific thing. No, not even.
Oh, right.
It should. I think it should always be like, right, everyone go as Power Rangers or something like that. They have to make it specific.
That's what my
Do you want me to go anywhere else, or is this? All right.
no way.
Cool. So basically, the only one I really have to worry about is that one in terms of getting my hand
Yeah.
in the wrong place. Yeah. Well, I'll just stay behind the corner. Actually, it's probably better if these 3 don't see me, because they'll probably freak out if I start waving my hands and stuff.
Yeah, I haven't thought of anything.
As long as you sort of position yourself so you've got the front end.
Yeah.
All good?
Yeah, all good. Yeah. We've both been. We know the camp. You know that like
That will be.
20% of people actually do it.
Yeah, sure.
No, it's all done here. This is Chloe.
Hello.
This is Mum.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. How you doing?
Yeah.
So what one do you want? So we've got the wide. What one are we going to be? We don't want to move. Do you want it on the presenter?
Oh yeah, actually, probably the wide and the presenter probably don't need to move, do they? So I guess
Well, it's up to you.
I don't think so because they're quite safety. You know,
They all go
that's
to.
So-
these 3 would be sort of.
Yeah.
Is that one?
Yeah. So Chloe will be on that. Are you on
Yeah,
that
so
camera?
I could do this. Yeah, and pants.
Yeah. So Chloe will be on this. So the other two will
Perfect.
just
The
up
other
top.
2 can be locked
Yeah,
off.
fine.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be on cams with Chloe anyway.
Brilliant.
Cool.
Perfect.
You can hear Gary, can you?
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. So you
Perfect.
need.
I
You need
won't
to
always
pick up.
talk back because
No,
they can obviously
we're
hear me,
live.
but yeah, I can
of
hear you.
course.
So.
Yeah.
Do you, once you know names, you just have to make sure we know who you're referring to.
Right.
Oh
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
I suppose you're running those
yeah. Yeah,
lights
when they
quite high.
direct the questions, yeah, who they
I mean, the good thing is you may have to cut to the why he's asking the question, and then whoever starts talking.
Exactly. I'll wait for you to frame. I'll follow you,
Yes.
obviously, but I don't know whether it will be one of those. You know, he might just ask a question to the three of them, and it will be
And then that's it.
people talk. You know, like the people jumping in with the odd. Obviously, worst comes to worst, I'll keep it quiet for those sorts of things.
All right, Sam's all happy.
Are we done with these mics then?
You done with the mic? Do you need them on the mics for us? Just no, not unless you need them.
Have we been through them all? They're all working, right?
Yeah, they're all good.
Lovely.
I did notice that on them.
Great, thank you very much.
song.
Sure. Louise. Right.
Just get you to put that. Have you got an inside pocket? Or?
Probably.
Yeah, pop that in there. That'd be perfect. Great. Thank you very much.
Wow, that's a big thing in my pocket.
Okay,
Okay,
I can
no,
take it out if you want. If that's easier.
It's okay. How's this? The bottle, chair. So you have questions.
I do have questions. So there's going to be two. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. All right. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We still going? 20, 19, 18, 17. Can someone get on camera?
Hello. 5, 7, 4, 3, 2, 11
It's
team.
like a Beckett play, isn't it?
Yeah,
More and
yeah.
more
I mean,
like.
yeah.
Are they saying that's all right? Okay.
Yep, they're good.
Good again?
Rory, we are good to go.
Lovely, cool. All right, I'll give you that again so you've got a bit of that sprinkle.
What do you do, Rory?
What do I do?
Yes.
I work with Mike and Bex. Well, I used to work on the film show at the BBC.
Okay.
We all know each other. So yeah, lots of junkets. So yeah.
Did you see the movie on a screen or on a television set, or how did you see the movie?
I saw it on a screen about the size of that. Yeah.
To watch it on a big screen.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to go again with my parents next
You
week.
should take them.
Yeah. No. Well, and then we're going to go see the exhibition as a kind of like game of two halves. Right. Do you mind if I do question one again? Is that all right?
Sure, because it was kind of a short answer I gave you.
Exactly. Okay, so was there anything about this film when you were making a kind of fresh take that you wanted to bring to the story of Van Gogh?
I must have thought that if I did it, it would be different than the way other people would do it. And probably thought that because I was a painter, I had a different relationship to the character. And most people think that they know something about Van Gogh. I mean, he's probably the most documented artist that ever lived. So everybody thinks that they know who he was, or they have some kind of a proprietary investment in him. So it's impossible to make a movie about Van Gogh. I thought that was a good reason to do it. Also, I mean, really, who needs another movie about Vincent van Gogh? So when you make art, nobody's really asking you to do it. Why do you do it? There's an impulse to make something that didn't exist. I certainly didn't do it for the money. So if you think about film as an art form, And you think about moving images and how, because I don't think that you can separate the structure and the content from the form. And so the narrative isn't just a narrative. The narrative is more of a Whitman-esque narrative in the sense that all the elements of the film are on the same horizontal plane. So sometimes there's language, sometimes there isn't. Sometimes there's images, sometimes it's black. Sometimes there's music, sometimes there's no talking. At the end, you have an accumulation of events that occur and you walk away with a feeling. And I guess our intention in this movie was to make a movie that was not about Van Gogh, but it was as if you were Van Gogh. And so, yes.
Yeah, great. No, I want to ask you next about Willem Dafoe, your incredible leading man. What was it about him, particularly as an actor and a performer, that you felt was so well matched to this character of Van Gogh? Was there a particular side of Van Gogh's character or flavour about him as an individual which you thought Willem could bring to bear in his performance?
Well, physically, he looks like Van Gogh. As a person, I mean, I've known him for 30 years, and as a person, he's somebody that I trust. And he's smart, and he's athletic, and so he's a very physical actor. And he's somebody that I felt like I could depend on. We could develop this thing together, which we did. And I thought that, I think it's rough business being an actor. And particularly as actors get older, they have limited opportunities to do different roles. And I felt like it was my responsibility as his friend to give him that role. But it was also my privilege because he's so talented, and I thought if he had an opportunity to do that, he would do something that was beyond my wildest dreams, which is what he did.
So were you surprised then when you got on set with him and you started performing? Were there certain notes and touches that he brought which you weren't even expecting when you were developing?
We thought that he would be able to do it, but when he, at a certain moment, he wasn't Willem Dafoe anymore. He was transfigured. He was somebody else. I guess, I mean, I think that it's a funny sensation when you see somebody that you know and you definitely don't recognize the person that started out with you and they become something else and you're a party to that. That was, he did an amazing job.
I think what's unique about this as well is that you also edited the film as well. It's often said that editors get to write the final draft. And what I wanted to ask is, what do you feel is the benefit of kind of bookending that process being?
Well, first of all, I didn't edit this film alone. I edited it with Louise Kugelberg, who also developed the script and shot the movie with me. So we had a very intense and, I mean, basically, she took the Avid program and put it on her laptop. We started editing the movie as soon as we got done shooting it, because the person who was going to edit the movie originally wasn't going to be ready for 4 months. But by the time we arrived in Paris with the film, that to show the editor, we were so far gone and inundated into what it was that anything that somebody else would have done would be to take away the things that characterize it as itself. So I would have to say that, so we worked very closely together, and we absolutely, editing is writing, and we definitely, it's kind of like painting, the way that this movie evolved. And in fact, the experience of looking at the movie probably is more like looking at a painting than any other film I've made, because it's also told in the first person. So there's nobody mediating. It's not like you're hearing a story. Something's happening. It's a situation that you're in the same way that the actor was in a situation that he needed to respond to. So it's a living, breathing thing that we were reacting to and not knowing the answer. I mean, we're not illustrating what we knew. We were finding things that we learned as we were doing it.
Talking about painting as well, you've said in the past that when you're working as a painter, you try to get people to understand. You're not trying to get people to understand what you're doing. You're trying to paint what you're seeing, and then later the viewer will kind of figure it out for themselves. So what I want to ask is that the approach you take to filmmaking as well? That's sort of that willingness to kind of lean into ambiguity.
Well, I found that when we were, after we made the movie, and then the Academy Awards start coming around, and the Golden Globes, and pundits giving their opinions, and interest groups, and the Hollywood Foreign Press, and God knows what else. I mean, basically, you find yourself selling something to people, which is not particularly interesting to me. When you make a painting, you don't try to convince people to like it. You make the painting. If they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. But you don't have calculated screenings to where you're trying to spoon feed the audience so you can then get them to like what you did. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it kind of opened up a question to me about the process. But I don't like when somebody explains a painting to me while I'm looking at it. I'd rather chew my own food for myself, and I don't want to chew somebody else's food for them. So the question, somebody asked me a question earlier today, if you needed to know something about the artist in order to appreciate their work. And I would say, no, you don't. Depending on what it is. Will it be more interesting if you know more about them? Or maybe. But I think everything that Van Gogh had to say was in his paintings. It just so happened that he was a great writer and that he wrote these letters. And so he documented his own life. And people read those things, and they've been an incredible source of information and enthusiasm and a whole minefield of familiarity where people really feel like they know this guy. But I think you can get something from the paintings that is spoken to you in a painted language.
You mentioned earlier about the perspective that you take in this film. It's so kind of like deliciously like immersive, I found, in that you are experiencing, it's like you're looking through his eyes and walking through his amazing fields in France. Were you trying to get your audience to kind of see the world through his amazing eyes and his viewpoint?
Yeah. And also we wanted to show what he was seeing. So, for example, when you see Mads Mikkelsen, out of the 11 minutes in the movie when Mads is doing the scene with Willem, most of the time we're looking at what Willem is looking at. A normal producer might say, don't you think we ought to show the main actor? But I think you feel closer to the main actor because you're living in his shoes. Now, we also gave the cameraman, Benoit Delhomme, his shoes and his pants. And so, we sent him to Scotland, where Benoit filmed his own feet walking through wheat fields and other high grass. And because we wanted you to get the sense of how, what's the word, durable and committed that man had to be in order to get to the far edge of society. I think you feel that.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. There's two kind of competing theories around the history of Van Gogh, which sort of surround the aspects about how he died, but also kind of the authenticity of that sketchbook that was found in 2016. Your film very much seems to take like a definite position on those two aspects of his life, which sort of go against kind of the more kind of, let's say, official narrative, which is put out there. Can you describe why you made those decisions as a director?
Well, first of all, if you're going to tell me that something is an official narrative, I would go against it immediately. And like I said before at the beginning of our conversation, there are equivalences in this movie. There are things that have nothing to do with a straightforward narrative. We're dealing with a filmic language, and we're dealing with. I was talking to Ian earlier, and Andrei Rublev, the movie by Tarkovsky. Not too many people know Andrei Rublev's paintings. In fact, they've never heard of him, probably. So I would say that Tarkovsky never had to answer a question like that. Oh, was it true that Andrei Rublev saw a naked woman running through the forest and there were fires lit all around her that were floating on the water? He didn't have to answer that question. Was it exciting to watch a shot at night where there was flames floating on a lake with people running through the water? Absolutely. Is it a good story to suggest that here's a guy who never met his audience when he was alive, that he would send something to somebody that treated him with some kindness and it wouldn't get there? Not until 126 years later. If you see a brief encounter and Leslie Howard is in the telephone booth and on the other side is his lover that he's trying to get a hold of, but they walk past each other, it's a filmic decision. The audience goes, turn around. And so I think that it works in the story. Whether it's authenticated or not is irrelevant. Our movie is not a forensic biopic. And as far as the story at the end goes, listen, if people want to believe that he shot himself and that makes them happy, good for them. I wasn't there. They were not there. If you see the movie Rashomon, there's one event. 5 different people tell the story. It's 5 different stories. So I would say all history is a lie.
So you're not concerned by what sort of academics and people like that will think when they see the more biographical details like that?
I mean, I've seen the movie with the director of the Musée d'Orsay and with a lot of art historians, and they realize that it's an artist's film about an artist. And it's fiction. We made up a lot of things. I mean, sometimes it's something that Van Gogh would have said, sometimes it's something that Louise would have said, sometimes it's something that Jean-Claude Carrier would have said, and sometimes it's something that I would have said. And that's the beauty of it, to have this receptacle, to have this living, breathing organism that is not a stepchild to some kind of fact, because other people, or there's a majority of people that think one thing, or the experts think something. So in Artaud, Antonin Artaud's essay about the artist suicided by society, you get the notion of, well, maybe if there were more people that are supposedly crazy, outside the patients would be the doctors, and the doctors would be the patients. So it's sort of, I think we wanted to show in the film also that I don't think Vincent van Gogh was crazy. I mean, I think he was lucid, erudite, educated guy who, and I also think he was a big success. I mean, in our film, when he's sitting in the vegetable field and he, Willem, tastes the dirt and he has a big smile on his face, I would say he's in the right place at the right time. I mean, I think he expressed the inexpressible, and when he says, I am my paintings, he is his paintings. I think that's really the point of the movie, not whether he killed himself or the boys killed him. But obviously, the guys who wrote the book, The Life, documented the fact that Or if there are people, maybe they were all lying too, that they were at the Le Cadran or they were watching this guy walk back from Chaponval. But I can tell you that I don't, first of all, I think it's also documented that he never shot himself in the wheat field where Irving Stone had Kirk Douglas shoot himself behind some haystack. That it's a convenient way of telling a story. If that's what he wanted to do, and that's what Vincent Minnelli wanted to do, you can't really blame Kirk Douglas for doing what the director said either.
Yeah. So you don't feel indebted to him as a man, you know, who was like, you don't feel his hand like, you know, reaching from the grave at all, as you know, as someone who was actually around when you're depicting his life like that.
He's not in the ground. I mean, those paintings are all around us, and when you look at them, they're in the present. They bring you into their present. They're very much alive. And so hopefully the film is alive. And when you watch it, it brings you into its present. So everything that's not in the film never happened. If you suspend your disbelief for a while and you can just enjoy that, it's like listening to music. I mean, there's a line in Basquiat where Chris Walken says to Jeffrey Wright, where do you take your notes from? And Jean-Michel said in real life, where do you take your words from? I mean, excuse me, where do you take your words from? He says, where do you take your words from? Everywhere. Would you ask Miles where he took that note from? So why should we use another set of variables instead of looking at it like it's music?
Nice. I'm going to get a little bit technical now. This film contains one of the most...
How long is this going to go on?
I'll do a couple more and then we can wrap it up if you want.
What time is it now?
We're okay. We're 20 to 8.
Yeah.
25 to 8.
It's okay. I'm just,
Sure,
you know, no. I just want to get an idea of pace myself here with you. Okay.
Sure. What are they saying on Nothing. Okay. Right. Fine. Right. I'll do the final.
It's okay. Don't worry.
Yeah. I don't want to.
Get your questions in. It's okay.
We'll wrap it up. Okay. So.
You don't have to wrap it up.
We'll do. I want to ask you a technical question, if that's all right.
All right. Ask me a technical question.
The use of the split diopter
Yeah.
lens is very exciting in this film. Can you explain one sort of what you wanted to achieve with that technical device, and also how you came up with it in the first place?
Well, when I made the diving bell and the butterfly, I used a swing and tilt lens because I don't think that when people look at things, it's as clear as Life magazine and everything's crisp and in focus. And if I take my glasses off, things will be a little bit blurrier. Things are clearer in this part of my vision than they would be on the edge. I went to a vintage store and bought some sunglasses. I didn't realize that they were bifocals. So when I went outside, I looked at the floor and there was a step in the grass. I thought, wow, that's great. I thought, well, if we want to make Van Gogh's point of view subjective and noticeably different than everything else in the movie, let's put these glasses on the lens. And the glasses were a little small for the lens, so we made a split diopter. So you'd have a different depth of field on the bottom of the screen and the top. And in fact, we didn't even fix it to the lens sometimes, so Benoit Delhomme could adjust it with his hand. It would feel more natural. And I think that you get this sense of subjectivity and the difference between what he's seeing and what other people are seeing, or what we see in the more objective sense. And also, by using that, it changes all the time. If you've ever driven in a car on the side of the road and there's high grass and you're looking at, say, at the beach in the distance, you'll notice that the bottom of the screen is blurry, or the bottom of the window is blurry, and everything's in focus further back. And so there are things that have to do with memory. There's ways of seeing things that get signaled by stuff like that. And so I thought it was very beautiful not to pay attention, to have something kind of be totally different at the bottom of the screen than at the top. And then sometimes you think, well, what is the logic? When do we use it? When is it, he's more anxious, or things get more exacerbated, or what is the logic? After a while, you don't have any logic. I mean, we even have it where he is running and the screen turns yellow and the trees are melting and they're cut in half, and then he runs into his own point of view. So how do you explain that? You explain it that it's exciting to watch, and he's nervous and he's escaping, and you feel that. And so it's, some things have names and other things don't. You can't explain everything.
You talked a lot about Van Gogh's eyes and the way we kind of get his perspective on film. I want to kind of, I guess, ask about your eyes as a painter and as a director. And to sort of like ask more generally, I guess, when you watch other people's films and when you look at other people's artworks, do you find you can switch off, like as a, you know, that sort of creative part of your brain, or are you always, you know, analyzing and picking things apart?
I'm a detective. So, and I'm also 67 years old right now. So I've seen quite a few things. There's a lot of things I've never seen, but certain things that I'm familiar with, I'll have a take on. And where somebody might see something and think it's new, I think having a new experience is something that's important to me. If I see somebody do something and other people don't know what it is, but I've seen it before. For example, you know the work of Joseph Beuys? Okay, well, you should, because Joseph Beuys is one of the greatest artists of the 20th and 21st century. Do you know who Anselm Kiefer is? No. George Baselitz?
No, I feel like a real Philistine.
Sigmar Polke? Okay, well, these guys are the most well-known German artists of the last part of the 20th century. And do you know who Franz West is?
No.
Well, Franz West has a show at the Tate Modern right now.
Okay.
Now, if you look at his work, which I think is quite, I mean, the word original is a funny word to use, but I'd say it's pretty original, but he definitely owes something to Joseph Beuys. If somebody didn't know who Joseph Beuys was, they wouldn't have that reference, and they'd look at his work without that, and they could see it maybe even in a, they would have a different experience than somebody that kind of knows that. So, your question is, what? How do I look at things, or can I not refer to something else and just have a pure experience? Well, when that happens, in fact, you know when that happens? When you look at Van Gogh paintings. Not all of them, but when he's really good and he really gets it, you look at it and you see exactly how it was made, and it's impossible to comprehend. It's human, it's direct, it's simple, and it's right in front of you, and it's incomprehensible. So you have something that you can relate to, that touches you, and you see how it's made, but you still can't comprehend what you're looking at. And so it's unendingly compelling. And the painting will stay the same, but as you get older and you look at it again, it will change.
Yeah, well, absolutely, yeah, I'm sure my take on it is very different to yours. Are we?
That's great.
Yeah.
One more question, maybe, Rosa.
Yeah. Should we do some of the social stuff?
Yeah, just very quickly.
Yeah. Cool. Right. Let's get on the schedule then. Right. Those are the DVD questions wrapped up. So these next are a bit more. They're going to seem a bit more kind of quick fire and.
Okay. Well, maybe so you're done. You didn't have one question after the last thing we talked about?
Well, that's everything I wanted to cover for the
okay.
DVD. This is what I wanted to do for social media stuff. So.
Okay. This is the ones where I might just say pass.
Yeah, and imagine some like, you know, ADHD millennials staring at their phone. Right, okay, so...
I didn't understand that. What did you just say?
Basically, imagine some sort of, you know, hipster looking at their phone on social media. These are the answers they're going to be looking at.
Hipster looking at
their phone.
At their telephone.
Media, yeah.
Hipster looking at a phone.
That's the
Okay. A hipster looking at a phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so question one. What is your earliest memory of watching a film in a cinema?
You're the hipster, or am I the hipster?
Imagine I'm the hipster.
So take your finger out of your ass.
Okay.
Okay. So you can hold your phone correctly.
Mm-hmm. All right then. So, in case, what is your earliest memory of watching a film? When you first sat in a cinema?
10 Commandments. Well, I saw things before, but the 10 Commandments, where the The Red Sea splits and the Egyptians drown.
So was that the moment when you wanted to become a filmmaker, when you saw that moment?
No, but that's the moment when I was amazed. How'd they do it? I want to know how they did it. It was terrifying also.
Second question, what is your favorite part of the filmmaking process? Is it pre-production, being out on set, editing? What do you enjoy most?
It depends on the day. I like editing, I like shooting, I like, it's a pleasure to work with people that can do something that you can't do. And so that I like.
Is there a film that people are always surprised to hear that you like? Maybe a sort of guilty pleasure film?
People are surprised that I like. No, because I don't tell people that I don't know what I like or don't like, so usually they'll know me and they won't be surprised.
Okay, so it's not like you love like a Michael Bay film or something like that, for example.
What was that guy who was, I used to like to watch Steven Seagal movies.
Yeah? How come?
I don't know, he was beating everybody up and killing people and they didn't really get hurt. And it was funny to watch him. His expression didn't change no matter what he did. I thought it was unusual.
Okay, this is what you, at the very start of this interview, you mentioned how I watched this film. This is sort of similar vein to that. What is your I can't believe I'm asking this. What is your number one rule of good cinema etiquette and the way people behave in a cinema?
Don't behave like a farm animal. Also, turn off your phone. Don't text.
Great.
Don't text.
Yeah, good. Yeah, don't text. Good for someone on their phone. If you could work with any actor, alive or dead, who would that person be?
I guess I already worked with all the actors that I wanted to. I mean, there's some great actors that I got to work with. I mean, Willem Dafoe, Javier Bardem, Benicio del Toro, Chris Walken, Max von Sydow. I mean, it's bad to pick one person. I mean, because Gary Oldman. I mean, people bring different things. Who would I love to work with? Who's a great actor that I didn't work with? Ralph Fiennes is a great actor. My favorite of favorites, Marlon Brando.
Amazing, wonderful. And then finally, do you ever re-watch films? Is there any particular film where you just pull that DVD out of your cabinet again and again to watch it because you like it so much?
Yeah. I mean, I've watched Andrei Rublev many times. But I could get better than what movie I like to watch over and over. I can give you a list of movies that maybe people should watch that they didn't watch.
Go for it. I mean, I've already got a long list of all those artists I need to check
Okay,
out,
so Pichoch by Hector Babenco. Embrace the Serpent, which was a Colombian film that was the same guy who directed Birds of Passage that came out recently, did that. Going Places by Bertrand Blier. Obviously, The Godfather, 1 and 2, not 3. And The Battle of Algiers by Gilles Pontecorvo. I mean, there's a lot of movies that people should take a look at that they probably never heard of. And obviously, we have to go now?
Yeah, we do.
Mean Street, Raging Bull.
Okay, that's on the list. I'm going to write all these down and then have a good old session next week. Julian, thanks very much. We're going to wrap it up there because we need to do a rehearsal with this guy.
Thank you very much, Julian.
Sure.
Julian. Fantastic answers. Wow.
Shall I? Oh, you can walk and be mic'd.
Oh, should I be mic'd? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for that.
And the problem is you need to turn it off, so if I'm talking over there and I'm not on, I want you to hear what I'm talking about. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it suddenly popped in, didn't it?
You're the audience. All right. I'm going to give you all my shit if you don't mind.
Yeah, do it.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, so we're now going to do just a quick dry run, just to make sure it's all going smoothly. We're basically going to act as if we're going on air in 3 minutes' time. So I'll give you a 2-minute warning, then a 1-minute warning,
Okay.
and then I'll count down from there. You've got a while, you can get comfortable.
So, Julian, what is exactly about Steven Seagal's films that you like? I can't say I'm a Jason Statham fan, so I love the Statham, and we are both Fast and the Furious franchise fans. So,
Oh, yeah, Fast and Furious.
Cool. All right, 1 minute to allow everyone.
so it's this bit I hate.
Okay, nice and quiet, everyone. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ian Hayden-Smith, and welcome to this post-screening discussion with the director of At Eternity's Gate, Julian Schnabel, the co-editor and co-writer on the film, Louise Kugelberg, and also Carol Jacobi, who is the curator of the Van Gogh and Britain exhibition at Tate Britain. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So, Jake, tell me about your beard, please.
Yeah, I've had this for about 3 or 4 years. No, maybe longer, 10 years. And now underneath the skin is white and pale, and I can never shave it off.
And is that a natural brunette, or have you been dyeing it?
No, it's normally red.
Okay.
And I dye it brown once a week.
And a deep red, or a kind of an Irish red, would you say?
Yeah, very Irish, like an Irish setter.
Okay, very nice. It looks good.
Thanks.
How are we doing? Should we continue? Okay, we're carrying on, continuing. Jake, talk to me about At Eternity's Gate. What prompted you to make this film?
I just really wanted to see Willem Dafoe wearing a hat like that.
Do you own a hat like that?
I own several hats like this, and I wanted to make sure there was a film where Willem Dafoe was wearing one.
Okay, because the thing is, with your beard like that, you look like you should be in a Bergman film rather than a film about Vincent van Gogh. You've got that Scandinavian winter look about you.
That's true. I think Bergman film will be the next film.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I didn't see that. And finally, thank you very much. At Eternity's Gate is currently on release in Curzon cinemas and cinemas around the country. It is also available to watch on Curzon On Demand, where you can also see Julian Schnabel's fine documentary, Lou Reed, Berlin. To find out more, do go to curzon.com/At Eternity's Gate. And it just leaves me to thank my guests this evening. And, sorry, and goodbye. That was a bit shit. Sorry.
That's right, sorry, rehearse it. Yeah, let's have a look, crack at it, yeah.
Do I go back through the names, or shall I just say thanks to our guests this evening?
Just say thanks to everyone,
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to do one by one, just a general thanks,
Yeah.
But like I said, there's, yeah. Basically, the note from the gallery is just, you're in charge, and there's no particular rush. It's not that we're trying to hit a particular.
No, fine.
So just take your time. Just wrap it up. As slowly or as quickly as you want.
Okay, fine. Because I know he might just add something out of the blue. Which is.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Cool. Okay.
Do you want to have another go at that? Just another dry run before we.
I'm fine. The less I do before, the better I am.
Less is more?
Yep.
Fine by us.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ian. Looking good.
One thing I will do, before we get going, can we just make sure there's water in the glasses themselves, just so it saves having to pour it while we're...
Oh, yeah, because that's always awkward.
Yeah.
Spill it everywhere. I'll make sure that's good to go.
Brilliant, thank you.
where I'm going to be standing to get any surprises. So I'm going to be standing, I'm going to count you guys in to this camera here at the top.
Yep.
It'll be 1 minute warning, and then I'll count you down for 10 seconds. And then once I cued you in, I'm going to come and sit on this chair here. So if you see me lurking behind on the left, don't be concerned. Sit on that.
Yeah, the shoes. I guess we have to remember the shoes. Wow, and the painting of the shoes that you've got in your show. We can talk about that. We can talk about that.
And we've got Eternity's Gate in the show.
Yeah, I know that.
And that whole thing about Shakespeare would be interesting to pick up.
Sure.
La Lysienne is in the show. And we have all these pictures of the garden, as you mentioned.
Sure. I mean, we'll get to see where, wherever we're going and however, well, it'll turn into a movie. How does paintings turn into films? Or how does a painting become a movie? And how does it then revert back and become, how does a movie become a film? I mean, a painting.
Yeah.
Which really, yeah, how does a stream turn into a sculpture?
That's not really.
I can wear that. Can I wear that, Carol? It's kind of nice.
Okay. Hello everyone, and I hope you enjoyed the film. My name's Ian Hayden-Smith, and welcome to this post-screening discussion. I'm sat here with the director of At Eternity's Gate, Julian Schnabel, the co-screenwriter and co-editor on the film, Louise Kugelberg, and also Carol Jacobi, who is the curator of the Van Gogh in Britain exhibition at Tate Britain. Good evening, all of you. Let's start with At Eternity's Gate, the title of the film. Anyone who goes to the exhibition at Tate Britain will see the painting, which is, the full title is Sorrowing Old Man at Eternity's Gate. And thinking about eternity, there's a line in the film in which Willem Dafoe, as Van Gogh, talks about eternity, and then we cut to a vast landscape. But the painting itself is a man sat on a rickety old chair with his head in his hands. So why the title At Eternity's Gate?
Well, it's not called At Eternity's Gate because of that painting. What he says is, when I see a flat landscape, I see nothing but eternity. Existence can't be without reason. And so he says, am I the only one to see it? I think we're all at Eternity's Gate. And the reason why we called it that was really about somebody that is not going to meet their audience. And so when he says to Dr. Gagé, I used to think that an artist was supposed to teach how to look at the world, but I don't think that anymore. Now I just think about my relationship with eternity. So I think it's more about the commitment to making something and seeing something and being in the present and knowing that that's what you have. There's no audience that you, and so basically you're leaving that out there for whoever's going to come by, which is us, the recipients of that thing. So I think that's what it's about, rather than, it's a fine painting, but that's not why we called the movie At Eternity's Gate. But I thought, well, since he did that, it was pretty good. He was agreeing with us, so it was, we felt comfortable with that.
It's interesting.
I'm sorry.
But there is a connection, because the origin of the old man sitting in the chair was Van Gogh's loss of belief in the church, but he found that that he had this idea that an everyday person thinking about the end of their life did have a sense of eternity, and that therefore there must be something more. There must be a spiritual dimension to things, and it's the ordinariness of the old man, and his internal view of eternity is a little bit like the external view of eternity in the landscape that you mentioned. So that was Van Gogh was looking for spirituality in the imagination and in the everyday experience, rather than in the church by that point in his life.
And even at the beginning of the movie, when he says, "I just want to be one of them," like somebody just to ask me to sit down and have a drink, give me some tobacco, and a woman would smile at me and ask, "Are you hungry? Would you like a piece of fruit, a piece of cheese, or some ham?" And so the idea of an ordinary thing like that, I thought that anyone could relate to that. And what happened in the film, and this was not necessarily in order. As we worked on the film and we were editing, you see the girl on the road. We knew that we were going to pan from the landscape and find the one vertical thing, which was a woman standing on the road with the sheep. But at first you think, how do you want to get close to the character? And in most movies you would see the main character. But the idea of not seeing him and seeing what he's seeing informed what we were doing. And then when later when you see what happens between them, and you think back to it, you're seeing that it didn't quite go the way he hoped it would. And so he was very, very, very good at some things and not so good at other things. And so I think it was important for us also to show that he was somebody that was going to be out in the landscape, that this was going to be something that there was a wildness to him, and there was something that was going to be vibrant and that couldn't be kept inside of a. I mean, I think that even in his when he was here in England, I mean, the guy walked everywhere, and one of the things that we wanted to show was how arduous it was for him to make the paintings that he made, and how far he had to go to be on the far edge of society.
This is an interesting element about the way that Van Gogh is presented and perceived, both in the film and in the exhibition. In your introduction to the catalogue, Carol, I noticed that you'd written that the intention, and something that the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam has been doing as well, is to move on from the perception of the artist as the tormented outsider and appreciate his engagement with the people and ideas of his times. This really feels like the remit of both the exhibition and this film. This desire to say this is not the nutty artist that everyone knows. There's something more going on. Perhaps, Carol, you first.
You get that sense of intentionality in the film, but certainly when you read his letters, you can see that Van Gogh's outsider life, particularly his rejection of the middle-class life of his family, was very much a decision and not a failure or an accident, but a decision. And he said it was almost like sort of getting rid of a whole load of clothes and actually being himself. And he often said he felt far more himself when he was with other working people as he saw himself. And I think, I'm sure it's the same with you, you so often get asked, why is it that Van Gogh is so eternally fascinating? But I think one of those things is that he just had this ability to find the beauty and the poetry and the drama and in the everyday, in completely ordinary everyday things of his surroundings and of his world that he chose to be in, chose to look at, and chose to paint.
But what he did, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You want to say something?
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, as you said in our movie, I think we really wanted to portray that how misunderstood he was. For instance, the scene with the kids when the kid throws the stone on him and he runs after the kid, and then he's in the front of the kid's father's house. He sees him having the arms around his son and runs out and grab him. I mean, it's sort of an event that anyone would react to.
I mean, if you open the door and there was a guy with his arms around your kid, you'd beat them up. I mean, obviously, that event, I have no idea if that happened or did not happen, but I mean, it was a way to bring him into the Hotel Dieu, where Theo could come and then think about how to get Gauguin to show up and be with him. And so obviously, also, for example, the painting that he was painting of the Roots was painted in 1889. It wasn't painted in 1888 in Arles. And so there are poetic licenses that we took in order to tell the story or to achieve what we... but that being said, there are things that are uncannily... well, there's one thing that I think is something that's very present in the exhibition that you made, and particularly, I mean, you've got 3 Francis Bacon paintings of Van Gogh on the way to work. And in I think in 56 or whatever, Bacon took a quote from Van Gogh saying, how to achieve anomalies, inaccuracies, and refashionings of reality to where what comes out are lies, but lies that are more true than literal fact. And I think what we tried to do, or what we did in this movie, was we took everything that we knew and didn't know and posited it somewhere in order to make an experience that would maybe be an equivalence to what it might have been like to be him, rather than it being about him.
But there's also this element with biography anyway, and writers such as the French novelist Laurent Binet has discussed this notion that we read biographies and we believe everything. We're told in one line that someone woke up that morning and put in their coat, went downstairs, how do we know they did that? Exactly. We're told that because that's a form of writing that we're used to with the biography, but it's no less fiction, perhaps, than a novel. And what's interesting, I think, is to perhaps move reality to a side and look at a truth and say, if you're trying to reach into someone's being, of what they are, then you can't deal with the mundanity of the facts. It's perhaps trying to explore what made someone.
Well, those things become physical facts. The film is a fact, is an object in itself, and it's a work of art. It's not a journalistic, forensic biography. It is us taking an opportunity to, through editing and writing and also collaborating with somebody like Willem Dafoe. I mean, somebody that can actually know the lines, but be transfigured. Feel him. Who knows how to gauge or describe what's happening inside of Willem's process or his brother's process. I mean, we know that Theo took care of Vincent. And what could you say that would be more emphatic than him getting in the hospital bed with his brother in his suit and putting his arms around him? Then you think, well, how do you show that? Do you show it with a bunch of cuts? Can we take the camera and put it on top of their heads and be with them to where maybe you get the sensation of that Michelangelo painting from the Sistine Chapel of, you know, things come up, you see things, they, for example, you have the prisoners that Van Gogh painted from the Gustave Doré etching.
The exercise yard at Newgate.
So we went out to the asylum where he was interned, You look out the window, there is a brick wall, stone wall, that goes around this lavender field. So we thought, okay, why don't we have these patients in straitjackets walking around the lavender field rather than the prisoners in the prison yard? But absolutely, it becomes, certainly it's possible, but it's an interpretation of that. And I think just as Van Gogh made an image of Duré's work, we kind of interpreted that and made something that seemed to be, well, they're not prison anymore, they're patients now.
But there's many, I mean, many portraits of Van Gogh, and they're all works of art. Even his letters, which is a kind of portrait, is a work of art. It's not fact. He was a wonderful writer as well as a wonderful painter, and even that is a work of art. Each one, you know, is, and one of the things we looked at in the exhibition is how there seemed to be a sense that the Van Gogh that was invented at each cultural moment was the Van Gogh that was needed at that moment. Van Gogh that was distrusted and frightening before the First World War, the hero between the wars, and the sort of people's hero after the Second World War. And one of the things we've been thinking about, and maybe your film casts some light on, is what Van Gogh do we need now? You know, when we're making our work of art, Van Gogh, how does it answer our cultural needs at the moment?
Well, hopefully it's not as discursive as that. It's where it's something that's more emphatic, that it's not just maybe the idea of blowing in the wind as you're looking for the essence in order to portray something is one thing, but once it becomes that thing, that's the problem with things that are dated. Yeah. I mean, if you look at, say, Lust for Life, it feels very, very dated. And it seems also that Vincent is complaining a lot and crying a lot. And we certainly didn't want to do that. And also, I felt like Anthony Quinn, who I love as Marlon Brando's brother and Emiliano Zapata, Viva Zapata, as Gauguin. I mean, I loved the movie when I was a kid, but I mean, I think one thing we tried to do was not only use Gauguin's real letter to Vincent when he was in the asylum, saying he wanted to trade or work with him, but also the text at the end, which basically describes the yellow room that he had 4 years after Vincent died. So there's what you were saying, we were talking earlier about this idea of it being contemporary.
Yep, in the moment.
And, you know, we shot things in real time. And also, I mean, the movie starts and there are people speaking French. Usually people that are foreigners speak their same language with their family in a foreign land. So in this case, they weren't speaking Dutch. Theo and Vincent were speaking English. But Paul Gauguin is speaking French. When he walks out to the street, he's speaking French, talking to himself. But when he sees Vincent, he says, "Hi, I'm Paul Gauguin." It sounds like he's from Brooklyn. I think that's okay. I think what our intention was to make it contemporary in the same way that Robert De Niro and Harvey Keitel could be in Mean Streets talking on the street. And so there's something that makes you feel closer to these people rather than it being remote, because I think it's something that is a stasis. I think painting is a stasis, an emotional stasis that is formed by whatever's in the painting. And I think the film functions that way. And when Van Gogh says, "I am my paintings" in the movie, he is his paintings. And we are this film.
Something that the film picks up really, really, really well is this idea that a lot of people have talked about, that this wasn't an artist who wanted to explain the world. He wanted to prescribe. He had a specific vision of the world, and this is something I think that the exhibition really touches on. We catch him in his early stages in London and in Britain, but this is someone who's already thinking about the future, and that future happens to manifest itself in painting. Could you talk about the challenge of trying to achieve that within the exhibition?
Do you mean trying to achieve that, his decision to become an artist?
And his, what type of artist?
Yes.
And trying to sort of convey that vision.
I think there's an amazing letter, I'm sure you know it, that he wrote to his brother in 1880. and his attempt to become a minister, to have a religious career, had failed. He was alienated from his family. He hadn't even written to his brother for a year, and he writes this long letter where he sort of he's just inching towards who he wants to be, and he says he's managed to sort of get rid of all the middle class expectations, and he feels true to himself. But the only place he's finding any meaning is reading Zola, reading Dickens, reading Harriet Beecher Stowe, and in paintings. And he says there's something there. He doesn't know what it is, but he knows it is worthwhile. And that's when his brother says to him, have you thought of becoming an artist? And immediately, that's history, that's the beginning. He immediately picks up and starts becoming an artist. And one of those touching works in the show, I think, is the very first drawing he did after that point. And in his letters, he describes this mining landscape in the beautiful language of Dickens and of Zola again. But the actual drawing is so, he's just sort of, it's clumsy, hasn't quite worked it out, it's difficult. And the sort of contrast between the ideas he's got in his head from his reading particularly, and what he can do at this very early stage of his career is really, really moving. But also, you see that he has this incredibly quick development, how quickly he sort of moved on and became this wonderful graphic artist and then this wonderful painter. So it was nice to be able to dramatize that.
Louise, I introduced you as saying you co-wrote and co-edited, and what's been very interesting chatting with you both about the film and thinking about the world around Vincent van Gogh is that you don't talk about the writing as one thing and the editing is another thing and the shooting is a third thing. It's a whole universe that you've been immersed in. Can you talk about was there an entry point with his work, with Van Gogh's work, that I know that David Lynch talks about the eye of the duck, something that's at the heart of the thing he wants to explore. Was there something that gave you inspiration initially, that was like the jumping board into Van Gogh's life?
Well, I think when we went down to Arles and started to walk around in the landscape and really understood how far and how remote that he had to be from the society to make those paintings and those drawings that he might have done also. I think that was really something that struck me that I hadn't understood. I mean, when you look at his painting, they're really radiating this notion of nature, but being there and seeing that was really extraordinary.
And there's that interesting thing with the film that this isn't a film about color, this is a film about light in many ways. The way I reacted to it the first time I saw it, and the wonderful thing of starting off with a black screen.
Well, I don't know how to separate between color and light, but we definitely didn't try to make the movie look like his paintings. I mean, Vincent Minnelli tried to make it look like his paintings. Kurosawa tried to do that in Dreams. The 19th century was pretty dirty. And after Van Gogh saw Veronese's painting of the Marriage at Cana, he wrote at one time, the color in my paintings doesn't come from reality, it comes from my palette. And so if we're doing that, I mean, I can't really tell you why I thought we needed to put a yellow lens, a yellow gel over the lens, and then use a split diopter to get his point of view, to separate that from everything else in the movie. So you really felt like when you were looking through his eyes, it was a bit different, particularly when he got a bit excited or exacerbated. It became more agitated. And I think that as you were talking, I was just thinking about this one moment where he's walking in the chapel. First of all, it wasn't scripted that we were going to shoot in Saint-Honoré. But when we went over there and walked into that room, those big columns were in there, it looked like something out of Andrei Rublev. We thought, okay, if we shoot it in here, then how do we tell that story? And you would think that Van Gogh was trying to get Gauguin to stay with him. But by running out of the chapel, Gauguin had to go after him and try to appease him and say, what's the matter? And why are you being so dramatic? Try to bring him back, but he was so gone by the time Gauguin got to him that he just sort of, and when he says, oh, it's so great to have you here, obviously Gauguin can't hear him and he's talking to himself. But in that chapel, there's a moment where he said, Gauguin says, maybe you ought to get control of what you're doing, paint inside more. And he said, I spend my whole life inside a room. And even if he didn't, I think about when he was in school and he felt so claustrophobic and in society. So the idea that, so sometimes you just say just a couple of words and it embodies that. I mean, for example, when he says, when Gauguin says, I want to go to Madagascar. And Van Gogh says, well, what about Japan? I mean, obviously there's been a lot of talk or things documented about him being fascinated with Japan, or thinking that even when he went down to Arles, it was like going to Japan. Well, it's nothing like Japan.
And he was even thinking about going further and going to Africa when he was down there.
Sure. But I think that what we tried to do, I mean, I think there's a big difference. But what is it that's similar and what is it that's different? I mean, about making an exhibition and also, or making a film about, and he just happens to have the same name, the guy in the exhibition and the guy in the movie. I mean, because, but the feeling that you get, I mean, and you were saying earlier about how he painted simple things or ordinary things, but he made them into something that was not ordinary at all. I mean, when you look at that painting of those trees at the asylum, it is, you see all those marks and you see the construction of this thing, and it's just almost impossible to comprehend. And then you have that painting in the show of that tree where he did all this glazing, because all of his paintings are not shiny. And so you see these little puddles of glazing that are on that, which obviously, I mean, I think about Rembrandt when I see those things. And it's just amazing how you were talking about something earlier about when Madame Junot was talking to him when he's says, she says, what are you reading? And says, well, Shakespeare. And that how it was frontal. I mean, when we cut it together, people would think, well, how come she's talking to the camera, but when he answers her, he's not? Mm-hmm. And so our take on that was, people are interrupting his reverie. And those are like the portraits also. The portraits are in the center of the frame, and then we have the landscapes, and the landscapes are horizontal.
So it was almost like he was looking at her as though she was a painting. Is that what you intended?
Yes.
So, you know, they're having a conversation, but his eyes are having a completely different conversation and thinking of her as if she was a painting.
Did you feel like that and when you saw other parts of the movie too?
Yes, yes, yes. And of course, it was I'm particularly struck by that one because this is the first painting in the exhibition. And we were very struck by, A, that he'd done them from memory, and so therefore she was absent when he made those paintings, which makes them much more moving.
But we could maybe tell a little story about that, which I think we could tell the audience, because in the film, Gauguin is making a drawing of Madame Junot. The painting that's in your show is based on Gauguin's drawing.
Yeah.
But he actually painted the Arlésiens at the same time, like in the movie, where, and now I wasn't there, but this is me as a detective saying, he's painting the Arlésienne from the right side, looking to the left, seeing that side of her face. So that's why we set up the scene like that. And then later, Van Gogh made 5 paintings of Madame Genou from Gauguin's painting. He also made a painting himself of that, but at the asylum, he took one of the paintings off the wall, and he disappeared for 4 days. Nobody knew what happened to him. So we figured, okay, he could lose one of those paintings in this altercation with the girl on the road. But it's interesting how you kind of can have ribbons of fact and kind of detective work, and then you think, well, okay, maybe we can do something with this. Or we obviously, well, I can stop there with that.
I know, sorry.
There was another scene I was struck by. I was very struck by the fact that the film opened with him in Paris trying to put on this art exhibition. And that's a story I don't think is very well known about Van Gogh, that it wasn't just the Studio of the South where he wanted to have an artist collective, and he had this ideal of artists working together like a family, something that ran through his whole life. And I was interested in why you started the film with that episode.
Do you want to tell her?
No, you should.
Well, it turned out that Gauguin saw that show. He actually saw the paintings in the cafeteria. And so we wanted to have, it was a sort of a rudimentary scene. What do we have, a couple moments? How long do we have? It's okay, you can, what, 2, 3, 4, 3 minutes? Okay. We're totally transparent on this program. They're talking about this at the Tambourin. We wanted to introduce the situation that he was in, but it's relatively rote, and we didn't want to spend too much time on that. But the notion that Gauguin would be there and say something to those guys, walk out. His brother shows his brother's an art dealer. He knows who that is. He goes up to Gauguin because he knows who he is, and he says to him, "Yeah, I saw your show at the cafeteria. This is too many paintings, you know, a hard, difficult space." And obviously, I wasn't there, but that's totally believable that he could have said that. In fact, I said that to Francesco Clemente about some paintings that he had. But in order to get him going down that way, we thought it was, so it's partially true. And whenever we could use some facts that we knew, we kind of spun them into straw or gold.
But it also starts with an urban Van Gogh, and I don't think people think of an urban Van Gogh. That's something that's very important in the exhibition.
How did you like when he walks into the Louvre and he's looking at Delacroix, and there was somebody that was saying, well, why do you want to go out of the scene when he's talking to Gauguin? But I know that he didn't see Goya or Velázquez at that time at the Louvre, but wanted to show the way a painter looks at paintings. And I wanted the audience to be able to see that. So it was great that we were able to shoot at the Louvre. We're going to show the movie at the Louvre tomorrow.
Wow.
Tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow.
Audiences around the UK might not be able to go to the Louvre tomorrow to see the screening, but At Eternity's Gate is now on general release around the UK. It's also showing on Curzon Home Cinema, where you can also see one of my favourite of Julian's earlier films, his concert documentary, Lou Reed, Berlin. If you want to have more information, go to curzon.com/At Eternity's Gate. If you want to see Van Gogh in Britain, the exhibition is on at Tate Britain, and it's there until, I believe, the 11th of August.
That's right.
Thank you very much to Curzon for organising this event, but most of all, I would like to thank our guest this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Louise. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was very quick.